In Guatemala, Bernardo Arevalo and Karina Herrera were sworn as president and vice president with an over 8-hour delay. In Palestine, the Israeli regime continues its relentless siege against Gaza for the 101st day. Authorities registered more than 60 Palestinian civilians killed in the last hours. And in the United States, millions face freezing temperatures across the nation as storms move in from the Arctic. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. With an over 8-hour delay, Bernardo Arevalo and Karina Herrera were sworn in early Monday morning as President and Vice President of Guatemala after having overcome a series of judicial obstacles raised since they went to the second round in the general elections in mid-2023. The President was sworn in by Samuel Perez of the Semilla movement, who was previously elected as President of Congress of the Republic after a process that took several hours. The authorities took office for the constitutional period 2024-2028. The ceremony was attended by several presidents and heads of government, in addition to high-level delegations from different countries. During his speech, President Arevalo called to transform the country's political panorama, adding that in recent months there had been a resurgence of dictatorship habits due to the attempts of different sectors that sought to prevent his arrival to government. And also, after several hours of delay, the Congress finally sworn in the new deputies, which allowed the inauguration of the President Bernardo Arevalo. Members of the legislature previously obstructed the swearing-in ceremony and the review of credentials of the new legislators for more than 3 hours. In view of this, social movements announced the intention of Congress to hinder the beginning of the new government, as well as the actions against the group of the Semilla Party, which was described as an independent bench. Groups of demonstrators remained in the streets, claiming that the swearing-in of Bernardo Arevalo was being prevented due to unnecessary delays by Congress over credentials that are hindering the ceremony. Finally, the plenary of Congress approved with 83 votes that the 23 deputies of the Semilla movement bloc assume their position as independents, so they will not be able to run for the board of directors and will not be able to preside over working commissions. Heads of government and senior officials, foreign ministers and diplomats from more than 60 countries were in Guatemala for the inauguration of President-elect Bernardo Arevalo. The President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro, was one of the first leaders to arrive in the country this Saturday, along with the EU High Representative for Foreign and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Portugal, João Gomes Cravinho, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mexico, Alicia Bárcena. Also in attendance is the King of Spain, Felipe VI, the President of Paraguay, Santiago Peña, and the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, among others. After the day, world and regional leaders called for an end to all irregularities related to Arevalo's swearing-in ceremony. Ecuador controlled and quelled this Saturday a number of prison riots that broke out simultaneously amid this week's wave of criminal violence. The government also released more than 150 hostages who had been held hostages by the inmates. Through a message on the social media X, Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa confirmed the release of all the hostages who had been held in the prisons of the cities of Esmeraldas, Latacunga, Ambato, Cuenca, Sogues, Loja, and Machala since the beginning of the week. The riots had become the focus of the ongoing violence that broke out on Tuesday with a series of attacks in different parts of the country. According to the authorities, the riots of the last 5 days claimed the life of at least 4 people, among them a guard and 3 prisoners. Journalists Association of El Salvador records 82 aggressions against journalists using the state of exception. The association denounced an increase in hostility and threats against journalists while covering and investigating in the context of the state of exception. A total of 82 aggressions against journalists while carrying out their journalistic work of reporting, graphic documentation, and investigation have been registered by the Monitoring Center of the Journalists Association of El Salvador since the state of exception began on March 27, 2022, until December 31, 2023. In some cases, a police or military authority prevented them from carrying out their work in public spaces, using as an excuse the application of charges of unlawful associations. According to Gabriel Labrador, rapporteur for freedom of expression, the violations of freedom of expression in the country had been committed by the police, and the violations of aggressions and harassment towards journalists and the media in general have worsened with the implementation of the state of exception. Also in El Salvador, health authorities warned about a considerable increase in the number of patients detected with COVID-19 and other seasonal respiratory diseases during the last 2 weeks. El Salvador's health department reported an increase of 31 positive cases of the disease in the country and reiterated the government's commitment to attend the most vulnerable people at risk of developing the disease. However, they did not discard the possibility that the JN.1 subvariant is already present in the country. So tests were sent to the National Health Institute to identify the variants that circulate in the nation. According to the Minister of Health, Francisco Alabi, 100% of the residents in senior centers have already been vaccinated and urged families to vaccinate their elderly in order to prevent respiratory infections caused by different viruses. The World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus is scheduled to talk about disease X next week at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Back in May 2023, Tedros spoke of the possible emergence of disease X, a virus not yet known to cause disease in humans, which could emerge as a new pandemic expected to be 20 times more deadly than COVID-19. A debate on this issue is set to take place next week on Wednesday, January 17th. Keynote speakers along Tedros will be, among other experts, Brazil's Health Minister Nícia Trindade Lima and officials from the AstraZeneca company, the laboratories that developed one of the vaccines against the SARS-CoV-2 virus responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. The story is coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. On Monday, the Israeli regime continued its relentless siege against Gaza for the 101st day. Authorities registered more than 60 Palestinian civilians killed in the last hours. At least 32 people were killed in Gaza City after Israeli warplanes bombed 2 homes in Al-Sabra and Al-Zaytun neighborhoods. 33 other Palestinians, including children and women, were killed in attacks in the southern area of Khan Yunis, as well as in the Bureij and Al-Maghazi refugee camps. Since October 7th, Israel has killed over 24,100 civilians, mostly women and children, while more than 60,000 have been wounded and around 8,000 remain missing under the rubble. In the Gaza Strip, it's been over 101 days since the start of the Israeli genocide, and the United Nations organization demands an end to the aggression against the Palestinian people. In a statement, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Middle East deplored the massive destruction, displacement, and killing of Palestinian civilians, mostly children, as a result of the persistent Israeli aggression in the Gaza Strip. The agency urged for the need for an urgent ceasefire and to ensure that humanitarian aid reaches all those affected. The UN agency also condemned Israel for the physical and psychological scars inflicted on the Gaza population, which they say will take years to heal. Egypt made a statement on the situation condemning Israel's measures, including the strict inspection processes that prevent the entry of a larger amount of products into the territory. Also reminded that his country continues to work tirelessly to enable the entry of a substantial amount of aid to Gaza. The statements of Egyptian authorities and the second official response to Israeli claims before the International Court of Justice, claiming that Egypt is limiting international aid to the Strip, something that Cairo had previously described as false allegations. Meanwhile, Palestinian officials have denounced that over 800,000 Palestinians are at risk of starvation due to the Israeli policy of limiting the entry of food into the Gaza Strip. They have stressed the need to allow the entry of larger quantities of basic supplies such as food, water, and medicine. Palestinian officials say the international community, especially the United States and Israel, are to blame for the impending catastrophe and whatever death may result from famine and thirst. In Palestine, heavy rains leave displaced people without shelter after flooding from sewage waste. Facilities sheltering thousands of displaced people next to tents in Jabalia, Beit Hanun and Beit Lahi were submerged due to the rains, while flooding shelters in government and UNRWA schools, along with shelters in the town of Khan Yunis and Rafah. Therefore, displaced families urge international agencies and World Health Organization to interfere to stop the Israeli siege and provide shelters to protect civilians against weather conditions. On Sunday in South Africa, the legal team that attended the International Court of Justice was welcomed at the Johannesburg airport. South Africa's legal team on Thursday presented its legal arguments before the International Court of Justice, the UN's highest court, to demand urgent precautionary measures against Israel, which it accuses of having genocidal intent in its war on Gaza, and demands an end to the bombing of the Gaza Strip. The team of legal and academic experts appointed by Pretoria is headed by John Dugard, the South African professor of international law and former UN rapporteur of human rights in the occupied Palestinian territory. This case centers on the violation of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, adopted in 1948 and enforced in 152 countries. On Sunday, Yemen's Houthi rebels accused U.S. and British forces of bombing a facility in the Al-Lahiyah district north of the city of Al-Hudaydah. This weekend, Washington and London carried out a large-scale offensive against Houthi targets in response to the group's attacks on shipping lanes in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. The Netherlands, Australia, Canada and Bahrain provided logistical and intelligence support for the air assault, and Denmark, Germany, New Zealand and South Korea signed a joint statement justifying the U.S. and British actions. According to a member of the Houthi group's Security Council, Abdus Salam Yahaf, the bombings targeted Sana'a, Al-Hudaydah, Damar and Sa'dah. In addition, there were reports of explosions in the city of Taiz. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. For a short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Millions face freezing temperatures across much of the United States as storms move in from the Arctic. The storm has killed at least 4 people in the past few days, caused power outages for thousands in the northwest, snowfall in the south, and the suspension of flights, work, and sports activities in much of the country. Meteorologists said they predicted that the worst part of the storm could send icy winds into the mountains and the Dakotas. In this context, New York Governor Kathy Hochul warned residents to stay indoors to protect themselves from the freezing temperatures. In Colombia, at least 40 people were killed on Friday when a landslide swept away an indigenous community in the northwest of the country, increasing the list of 30 people injured so far. Meanwhile, the government of Gustavo Petro promised all available aid to those affected, according to a new assessment of the events, as the search for more victims under mud and water continues. Some national government officials say that President Petro is expected to arrive in the area of the landslide on the Quibdó-Medellín road. The landslide took place on Friday afternoon and buried several vehicles that were stopped apparently due to an avalanche that had previously blocked the road between Medellín and Quibdó, capital city of Chocó region. On Sunday, authorities reported that floods in the town of Kinshasa have left hundreds of people affected and homes destroyed. According to an official report, the Congo River has reached its highest level in over 60 years, causing flooding in the entire region and in the neighboring country, the Republic of Congo. In recent months, nearly 300 people have died in the region and 300,000 homes have suffered some damage, plus tens of thousands of houses have been destroyed. The flooding has occurred along the banks of the Congo and Ubangi rivers, and the United Nations has warned the flooding may prevent access, therefore the arrival of medical supplies and personnel to an area which could potentially experience an outbreak of waterborne diseases such as cholera. And also in Syria, floods have caused the death of 4 people and huge losses in crops and homes in the coastal province of Tartus. According to local authorities, a family was killed in a traffic accident caused by torrents of water in the Arca Plain region. The Kika Department Mayor Sami Kadur said there was a 5-year-old boy among the victims. Moreover, Provincial Agriculture Director Ali Yunis said flooding has affected 4,000 greenhouses and dozens of homes in the area. In the Italian central region of Tuscany, 64 people were injured when a section of an attic collapsed amid a wedding party. The old Grey Cerino convent, turned into a restaurant, was hosting a wedding party for some 70 guests, mostly young people, when as they were dancing, a 3-meter crater opened in the floor and most of them fell from a height of 4 meters, with 6 people sustaining serious but not life-threatening wounds, although 2 suffered trauma to the head. Among the 64 injured, there are 20 minors. Through a post on social media, Tuscany Governor Eugenio Gianni praised the work of the over 100 rescuers involved, which include health workers, firefighters, law enforcement, volunteers, civil protection, and municipal police. Germany's government disapproval rating rises to 76%, record level in polls. According to the Survey Institute, the government's disapproval rating has risen while the support level has dropped to 17%, which represents the lowest result since the government came to power in December 2021. Germans expressed their discontent and low level of support with German Prime Minister Olaf Scholz's performance. Meanwhile, the Christian Democratic Union, the former Prime Minister Angela Merkel's party, together with the Christian Social Union, received 30% support. On Sunday, India's Foreign Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar began a 2-day visit to Iran. Upon his arrival, the Indian Foreign Minister met with his Iranian counterpart Hossein Amir Abdollahian to discuss issues pertaining to bilateral diplomatic relations, regional and international developments, political cooperation, connectivity initiatives, and about strengthening bilateral ties. Relations between India and Iran date back centuries, having shared a border until 1947 and retaining common linguistic, cultural traits and traditions, as well as entreating close trade and energy ties. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at TeleSURenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.